I just realized that all of that was with my speaker off. Woo! Yeah, so I'm Jim over here at RPG Enlightenment. That was really stupid of me. But yeah, tonight we're going to be doing some Adventura live world building. Going to have some guys hopefully join me later, and we can start throwing some ideas out there and playing around with some different concepts. I know one of the things that one of my buddies wanted to kind of talk about and go into some depth with is like how casting works within the world. Like he brought up the example of mineral casting, which is the manipulation of different minerals found within the earth. So diamond, gold, but even things just like stone and dirt, essentially. But can that be used to make homes? Can that be used to farm? What can that all be used for? And when he gets here, you know, since he brought that question up, we'll kind of go more into that. Till then, though, I'm just going to kind of talk your ear off and maybe just go come up with some random concepts that might be interesting. And hopefully sooner or later we can get some people in the chat and I can get some questions and get some feedback on the world. Not so much the mechanics, unless that for some reason comes up. Just to kind of give a brief overview, Adventura is not only the name of the system, it's also the name of the world, the setting. And that has to do mainly with the fact that when it comes to naming things, it's just what I came up with. So I decided the system itself, that's what it is going to be called. And then I couldn't figure out a name for the world. So I was just like, hey, the world is called Adventura. So, but yeah, so in Adventura, everybody is a caster. Everybody is able to manipulate a specific element, which are, let me make sure I can name them all, are mineral, flame, water, air, lightning, sound, light, darkness, or shadow, and spirit. And spirit is unique because it falls into two different categories, which is life and death. They can both do almost the exact same things. It just depends on how you or the individual use it. You can either take life or give life. Religion is a huge part. There are 10 major capitals. They are the religious capitals, and they are based off of the 10 religions. Let me see if I can name all those, which is war, balance, which is earth, the wilds, knowledge, death, sacrifice, illusion, the ocean, justice. I think that's everything. Gonna mute you real quick. Alright, sorry guys. Other than that, there's not really a whole lot to know. Everybody is born with a specific type of casting that they can do. They're born with it at birth. It is possible to learn other castings, but it is harder to learn. Generally, you have that one element that you're able to manipulate, which is called your natural casting, and you kind of just naturally train with that. You're able to do it since birth, so you become very accustomed to it. And everybody has a religion. at a certain point in each person's life, they have to choose which religion they're going to follow, and then they are taught that specific religion, which kind of, I guess, could lead into a world building aspect, which is when, because there's an event called the choosing that happens once every 10 years. And it's when everybody that has not chosen a religion yet is they gather in one of the 10 major capitals, and it alternates every 10 years. So one year it might be held in the war capital, another year it might be held in the justice capital. And it's kind of it's this huge, almost like a closest thing is like a job fair, because you have all these different religions vying for your attention, like, hey, join us. Getting pings. So it's this huge event that a lot of people, even people that have chosen a religion, come to, just because it's this major thing to see. Oh, and we got somebody.
What up, bro?
Hey, Chad.
How you been?
Been pretty good.
Did I jump in
Yeah, I went
something?
ahead. Oh no, not really. I just went ahead and started, just to kind of
All right.
talk to, I guess, nobody right now, but eventually, somebody might jump in, and also so that anybody that watches it later is not just sitting there in silence. But yeah, I was just talking about an event, because religion plays such a huge part in Adventura. Every 10 years, there's an event called the Choosing, and everybody that hasn't chosen a religion yet goes to one of the 10 major capitals, and there's almost like a job fair. It's this a bunch of different. Do what now?
Is one capital for each casting?
One capital for each religion.
That's yeah.
So yeah, so
you couldn't just go to any capital. You go to the capital that's the religion you want to finally choose, basically.
Actually, it alternates. So 1 year it might be in the war capital, and then in another in 10 more years at the next choosing, it'll go to maybe the ocean capital, and it'll just alternate every 10 years. And it's kind of like that capital is hosting the event for this choosing.
Gotcha.
And then you have a bunch of different events that kind of happen within it, and it takes place over the course of like a week. And it's all the religions basically show off for newcomers, for somebody. They're all vying for attention, trying to convince as many people as possible to join their religion. And so you have a bunch of demonstrations. You have a lot of almost like conferences and conventions kind of happening, and discussions, lectures, and things like that. So not only people that don't have a religion yet, so these are normally children or young teens, but also people that are well-freshed in their religion go to these events to either help promote their religion or to just be a part of the festivities, because it's this really large
it's like the Olympics, basically.
Kind of, yeah. So like because there's a lot of different events. So like those that follow the war religion, they might have something kind of like gladiator matches to show off how strong they are and be like, hey, yeah, you could be this strong, we will teach you. And then the knowledge religion could have a bunch of lectures and stuff and be like, you want to learn stuff, this is where you do it, and we'll teach you everything you need to know about life. So yeah, and then they have different all the different cultures, all the different races show up. They have all different foods, and so it really just is this huge week-long event that for a lot of people would look forward to, kind of like the Olympics.
You said that's every 10 years?
Yep. Yeah, every 10 years it would happen.
You'd have to live like 100 years if you were born and you weren't old enough, or you weren't whatever, you missed where like your religion was. In order to have that like at yours, it would take 100 years to come back around again.
Yeah. Yeah, which for some of the races isn't that difficult. For the humans, it would be because they only live to be about 100 years old. But and then of course, if you fall somewhere in that between those 10 years, you're going to be a little bit older before you get to see it again, or before you enter the choosing yourself.
But hey, that's the luck of it. The Super Bowl, the Olympics, they might not ever come to your country. They might never come to your state. In the case of the Super Bowl or whatever.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true.
That's the luck of it.
Yeah, so
like me, and I have like different football teams coming through my LA every different year. Somebody new who's in LA.
Right. So you brought up an interesting topic to talk about, which is the way you worded it is, in a world full of casting, how would crafting be altered? So like the example you used was like mineral casting to shape earth into a home, into a house, which I definitely would see it that way. Is you could use mineral casting to create a home, or at least the framework. But the only downside to it would be all made of stone or a specific mineral. So if
unless
you wanted,
ordered in different minerals or something.
Yeah. Then the other side of that is like if you wanted.
Or can you only manipulate one particular mineral?
No, you're able to manipulate all the different kinds of minerals. Most mineral casters lean towards one or the other, like not one or the other, because there's a lot of different kinds of minerals, but they lean towards a specific mineral. So some might lean towards diamond and just shaping diamond. Others might not care and just work with stone. Others might use it kind of as a they might shape like copper for one reason or another. It just kind of depends on the individual.
So would that alter like careers? Like you could be like a stonemason, but you're, instead of someone who works with the stone, you could just cast it and like go around making stone homes or walls or whatever, and then that's your occupation.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Basically.
Yeah, definitely. It would also kind of because you got to think about like part of it is they know how to manipulate the stone itself, but then they have to understand the structure of, like, say, a home. They have to know how to make it sturdy enough where it's not just going to fall over. Where the minerals they may be using themselves by themselves are strong. If there's an earthquake, or if high enough winds, did I make it too thin where it's just going to fall over? So things like that kind of take that training and that experience to do.
Yeah, you might figure out the hard way, or you might learn it in a book or something.
Yeah. So, but other mineral casters might just make pottery. They might simply shape like a clay into a bowl or a vase or something, or they might use diamond for some reason. um,
Diamond's so
which yeah, you
but
never know.
you can't create the mineral. You can just manipulate it, right? So diamond's still not all that plentiful in most
Um,
cases.
yeah, there is a I'm not gonna say rare ability, because it is possible to learn. It's just harder, which is to actually turn one mineral into another, but it takes a lot of concentration to do.
Transmutation.
Yeah.
They'll kind of like wish you're gonna get it at a much higher level. So you're gonna have to be, or whatever you call it. It's gonna require a much larger investment, or is it a possibility at birth?
No, you would definitely have to learn it later on, because you have to have significant knowledge of the mineral that you're starting off with,
Okay.
and the mineral that you're trying to turn it into, because you're basically manipulating it on a cellular structure.
Would that require dual casting then? You'd have to like you could only churn a mineral, a cat, something you have both casting into. Like you could turn it back and forth.
It's only going to go from one mineral to another. So
Oh,
like,
minerals. So
yeah,
it's specifically
specifically.
changing one mineral into another. Okay.
Yeah. So like being able to one example that I was talking to a buddy of mine about, and he brought up when we were talking about this, was like changing coal into diamond, or changing diamond back into coal for whatever reason.
Right.
But you would have to know how to do it. So it would take a lot of practice, and it would take a large amount of essentially magic to do.
Is that like their capstone, like the end result of being basically a full-fledged mineral caster?
It could definitely be looked at that way, but it's not something that everybody, even like super skilled people, would be able to do.
It's like a one in so many opportunity.
Yeah. But of course, you have prodigies and stuff, people that are just born understanding how it works for one reason or another, and they're able to maybe that's the only thing that they can do. Like, they don't have very good control over the formation of minerals, but they can transmute it from one to another.
Yeah, it's still a way to make a living, though. If someone's bringing you coal that's in abundance that they mine out, and then you're turning it into a diamond.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's all you have to do anyway. That would all you would need to do if you had that ability. So
right, and then if you know the structure for rubies and sapphires and all these other gems, as long as you know what you need to make it, you can just gather those supplies up and turn those into it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I kind of see a lot of the castings working in similar ways. Kind of like, think of an example, like air casting. If you're trying to use to do any kind of transportation in the sky, without the assistance of some kind of animal or anything, you're going to need either one individual or several individuals to use air casting to create that upward force that you need to fly. So you can have several
you could
people.
augment things like sails that by being a caster to push yourself where there is no breeze. You could go against the breeze potentially or something, and instead of having people that row, you would have these air casters, multiple air casters on your ship. So you could cast and then rest and then rest, expedite your travel.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Like you're not going to get to the point where you could just like roller skate like on the earth, like and like pump or push like you would on like a skateboard, or like roller skating, how you have to, like, I don't know what it's called, pedaling or whatever. you couldn't like just do that on the Earth? I mean, I guess you could to a limited amount of whatever your casting points allowed, right?
Yeah. I
And
mean,
like probably you want to get to a point where you could do it from this town to the next town or anything like that.
you could. It would. It's really a larger part of it, mechanics wise, would just depend on like flavor. If you're wanting to flavor it that way, as long as it's not giving you some kind of huge advantage, then yeah. Otherwise, yeah, it's probably, especially if you're just if you're a natural like mineral caster or air caster, whatever way you're trying to do it, it's just gonna um, it's just gonna be like one casting point per X amount of feet, probably your movement speed. Maybe if you're, or maybe double your movement speed, depending. So yeah, it all depends on how you're wanting to do it.
Dash or something.
Yeah, kind of like that. Just because if you're trying to do it basically to preserve energy, then it would be real helpful in that.
I guess I'm mostly looking at like different ways that casting would. I mean, we already explored like how it would augment building and crafting, and how it would augment or change transportation is what I'm looking at. So like, is there ways that your casting could expedite it besides air? Is that an advantage only they get, or?
No, I mean, I would definitely say that like a mineral caster, I even see some of them like taking a chunk of earth, or even several if you're transporting large shipments or people, taking large chunks of earth, and raising them up above the ground, almost like a small floating island, and being able to transport people that way.
Oh wow, land bridge.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, especially like literally creating a land bridge. If you come across a large fissure in the earth or something, you can take earth and form a beam across that you can walk across.
Yeah. You want a road through this hill, you could just manipulate it. You're not having to dig it out or blow it up or anything. You could just
you're basically just moving it aside.
There'd probably be a lot of construction workers and stuff in mineral casting.
Yeah, probably a main occupation for them is any kind of construction or mining. Yeah, also probably any kind of demolition for like mountainous areas and stuff, because you're just going to be able to take it apart piece by piece, using the casting and flatten it out. And then like fire, just like in real life, you know, we have thrusters and things like that. So you could definitely have, yeah.
Now, do they generate the heat then?
Yes. The thing with flame casters are a little bit not so much unique, because all casters need a source to pull from. So water casters, they can manipulate any liquid, but they need a liquid to manipulate. They can't create it. There are certain ones that can pull liquid from their own bodies and from things around them, like plants, but that does come along later on in life and later as they mature their abilities.
In the air.
Yeah. Fire casters, they can naturally manipulate heat, which
heat
means
is
they can
an excess of energy anyways, right? So they could just
yeah heat is they can create fires using that heat. So that kind of helps them there, but otherwise they need a fire source to pull from, to be able to use it effectively. Now, once they have that fire source, fire spreads, so they're able to actually
like that.
Yeah, they're able to.
They can generate a little bit. Yeah, they can generate a little bit, but then when it hits something and catches a light, then they have more to manipulate.
Yeah, yeah. So the more they're using it, the more fire there becomes, and then it's just rampant. Um,
Flame on.
yeah, essentially. Um, but yeah, so there's quite a few ability or castings that could be used to help transportation. The ones that I see probably being the least effective, at least as far as like a like public transportation or mass transportation, is things like light and shadow casting would be a little bit hard. It would be pretty simple for you as an individual to be able to do it, and to travel far distances using it, but it would be a lot harder to try and figure out a way to use those castings to transport multiple individuals.
No. But there's usually always some light and some darkness.
Yeah,
So
it's a matter of figuring out how to use that light and that darkness to create a mode of transportation.
they make up for it in other ways, I'm sure. Not every casting can do everything.
Yeah, like they do very well for getting themselves from place to place. For example, there's like the shadow step from that shadow casters are able to do, and they literally can step into one shadow and exit through another.
Unless you make it where they have it at a higher level or something where they could touch somebody and take them with them or something. But
Yeah,
still, you add what, a person or two that they could touch at the most if you do.
right. Yeah, it's like holding one person in each hand and then having to all go through at the same time.
And require a shadow big enough, I would imagine.
Yeah. And then same thing for like spirit casting is really only not so much only good for, but its primary use is for healing, either healing yourself or healing others. And then the other two that would be kind of interesting but could work, I guess, are lightning casting and sound casting. Which
could you travel
I mean,
at the speed of sound?
Yeah.
And the speed of
Yeah,
light?
essentially, yeah. There's the lightning step that lightning casters have, which they literally move as fast as lightning.
Wow.
That's pretty dangerous, though. That's one of the few abilities that has a drawback to it.
And you can hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Because basically look at it like you're moving
supercharge.
Kind of, it's like you're moving so fast that your body is having to burn off the essentially the magic within you, your essence, which is fueling it. And if you use it too much, it'll actually start to hurt you because now you're eating away at your life itself. So it's going to allow you to move very quickly, and it's going to make you extremely dangerous, or it's going to make you extremely hard to hit and be able to get away from situations or travel from one place to another very quickly. But if you underestimate the distance or underestimate how long you've been using it, or even overestimate yourself, you can end up mid-stride falling dead.
It has like a drawback.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, because it's
your matter can only like keep up so much. So
yeah, and the more you're using it, the harder it is to maintain.
What about the more often? Like, is it something that you can rest off?
Oh yeah, you could definitely if you use it, you use it to what you feel is your extent, and maybe you have no more casting points left, or you have no more energy left. Then you can rest and you'll regain everything back, and it won't have any kind of no side effects on you. Um, and then it's just a matter of there's no real way to train yourself to use it more, except to continuously do it to kind of learn that limit of, okay, I need to stop at this point, and now I can't use it anymore. Otherwise, I'm going to start suffering side effects.
Is there a chart for where you could maybe overdraw your caster points, but like at a risk or at exhaustion or something like that?
There's actually going to be there is. I haven't sat down and written it up yet, because your uh, there's two different kinds of energy that exist within each individual, and one is where your casting comes from, which is we're just going to call it, because it's all magic, but people don't refer to it as magic, but it's a magical energy that's kind of created by us just being alive. And then there's your life energy, which is essentially your soul.
Okay.
And
so you could lose your magical energy and basically just be mundane as long as you still have your life.
Yeah. And then once you start, because you can, it's kind of like a power of will. You force the casting to still happen even though you have no magic, but then you're going to start taking damage mechanically, compared to in the world itself, the lore. It's you're spending your life energy to be able to make this casting happen. You're eating away at your soul itself.
Okay.
And the way that works,
basically represented by your hit points.
Yes. The big thing though with that is, like in most RPGs, you have your max, and then you have your the current as you take damage and stuff. When you force yourself to go over, you're not just taking damage; you're actually eating away at your max hit points.
Okay.
So you can spend, yeah, but it's a pretty wide degree of what you would get. So look at it kind of like one hit point is worth 10 casting points.
Okay.
So you could spend 10 hit points and get 100 casting points, and now you're good. You can beat that boss, you can do whatever, but now you are down 10 of your max hit points. Which if you keep doing that, the more you do that, the weaker and weaker essentially you're going to become. As far as you're going to be a glass cannon, you're going to be able to throw a punch, but if somebody hits you even once with a minor damage, you're going to go down. And that's where that kind of represents.
Pretty cool.
But yeah, I will be making a chart for that. It just hasn't come up yet, and I wanted to kind of work everything else out before I started trying to fiddle with that.
That's beneficial, like in the lower levels. Like a lot of my castings, I was like, oh, I had like at first level, I had like I think like 11 casting points because I took the prosthetic, so that gave me a deduction. And so I was like, oh, I can basically cast my ability 3 times because I don't have 12 or more. So I can basically just use it 3 times, and then that was it. But if I have an ability to be able to use it at least one more time with just a little taste into something, then it evens out the fact that I don't have enough points to cast my stuff evenly, I guess. At least at the lower levels.
Right.
I don't really know
Which I
how
would,
that gain really, because there's no curve for me because we went from first to fifth, so I don't know how it balances out as you go. But
yeah. Um, I mean, it's as far as how it. Let's see if I can answer this the best way I can. As far as it, like I see it balancing, because I give you at each level, besides the first, which is about to change. It's going to kind of be this point by system based off of like the experience that you gain, and then you can put that into different abilities.
that's cool.
So that you have a wider range of things to choose from.
I like that.
And you can also hold off those points and put them into a higher level ability instead of just spending a bunch of them on smaller abilities. But the way I see it is it all depends on
skill tree.
It's not so much a skill tree. I thought about that.
Because you don't have to unlock. Well, you have to get to a certain quote unquote level to unlock certain things, but you don't have to spend a certain amount of skill points.
Well, like the way
you're not going through a certain way where you unlock something to get to something else. It's just based
off
of levels.
Yeah, it's so what I'm wanting to do is, and where I'm kind of at right now with the rewriting of it, is that I'm doing away with levels altogether. Where you're not looking at yourself as, oh, I'm a 5th level character. Instead, you're looking at it as, I am this individual, and this individual can do these things. And these are things that I chose because either I wanted them or, yeah. And the way you get those is when you, essentially at the start, when you're making a fresh character, you're going to get 600 experience. And I'll probably end up renaming those points. But right now I'm just referring to them as experience. And these minor abilities each cost 200 experience apiece. So you're going to be able to get 3 abilities.
Are they called abilities?
Yeah. Right now I'm calling them abilities.
Points,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the way I kind of look at it is like as you're going through encounters, as you're fighting the Onijin creatures and even other casters and other beings, you're gaining experience in using your ability. And I kind of look at it as that very heavy anime based, where the group is down, you're all about to be killed, and either one or several of the party members come up with some kind of new ability that they're able to use. They create this giant fireball that when they throw it, it splinters off and creates all these other smaller ones, and they all converge on one point. And that's its own ability. It's not just a simple fireball. And that's kind of where I was leaning for this little point buy system, is that as you're gaining this experience and your character is maturing, they are learning new things. And you as the player get to choose kind of what they're learning at what points. Because you could really have that character that has been in the background, has constantly having to be saved, and you never spend any of those ability points. And all of a sudden, you're at the boss fight and the whole party is down and they're the only one left, and they have that crazy massive ability that they spent like 13,000 ability points on. And
I got this, guys.
Are able to kill him.
Hold my beer.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hold my beer and watch this. Which I kind of like that concept where, I have a soldier character that is mainly combat, and then and I just save those points up and then use it to buy something that really improves my fighting capabilities, my melee, my sword play, whatever. like the, for example, the lightning step. I'm a soldier, and I now can zip around the battlefield and at the speed of lightning, making me almost impossible to hit. And yeah, so instead of having all these other little things that I can do, I have this massive thing that I can do.
Charge in. I'd use that to charge in.
Yeah.
Damn. Oh, all right. I'm needed over there. Zip. All right. Boom.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because you could definitely, because the way I see it is like, specifically for that ability is like that wouldn't be, you could move like anything that you could carry. It's kind of like it's like the Flash. It's like the personification of the Flash. So he can pick up a person and then run with them just fine. And that's kind of how this ability works. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to like pick up 100 people and just run with them. Your body can't handle that kind of weight. But yeah, so I thought that would be kind of interesting as an ability. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm leaning for with the abilities and stuff, is that you're going to be able to buy them with these points and better customize your character.
And you can better, you're going to have the castings be purchasable with those points?
Okay, so the way that you're going to pick your natural casting, and all of those type of casting abilities are going to be a not low amount. I don't want to say low amount, but like those first level abilities, these small little things that your character can do are 200 ability points apiece.
And you're giving them 6,000?
No, you're going to gain 600 at the start when you first make your character.
So you could choose two or three of those.
Yeah, you're going to be able to, or you can choose none and just save them. Now, for other abilities, it's going to be a lot more. So let's say you're a mineral caster, and you're looking at, which means you're automatically going to be able to manipulate a mineral. And so that's really, the way I see it being used is really for flavor and for little small things, like if you wanted to cover your fist in stone to hit somebody to maybe make it do some more damage. You're going to be able to do that with the basic manipulation of minerals. Then you have these little abilities that you're able to do. I'm trying to think of the first level abilities for mineral caster. Essentially like harden. So you're hardening your body to become more like the stone or more like the diamond, which is going to help you. It's going to help you survive more. It's going to help you hit harder and things like that. That's just a simple thing that you're doing. And so that's just going to cost 200 of the points. Now,
so then,
if you wanted, go for it.
So then, you're not waiting to get to a certain level to unlock the casting. It's as long as you can afford it, then you can buy it.
Yep.
So you could just save up, like you're saying. Okay, so I could save up and basically be essentially in other games like third level at second level because I saved up and used my points that I would have probably been at a point where I could level up and start affording second level castings. Now I can actually afford third level castings.
Yeah. And the way, because other castings are able to be learned. You're not limited by just your natural. The only thing that does is from birth, you're able to manipulate this element. So you get that basic manipulation.
But you could
which
dual cap. But you're talking about dual casting? Learning another casting?
Yeah. This the dual casting I'm referring to is not just limited to dual casting. Yeah, it's sorry, I had somebody just pop into the chat.
No problem.
Um,
No worry.
but yeah, it's not limited to just two castings. The Prodigy dual casting allows you to have the natural manipulation of two elements. So
Multiple element.
yeah, so you're going to be able to choose, for example, flame and water casting as your two natural castings, which means you're going to get the basic manipulation for both of those.
Okay.
But let's say you, for some reason, want to add lightning casting to that as well. It's not going to be your natural, but you can learn it. So you're going to do the same thing as you've been doing with buying abilities in both the flame and the water. The only difference is that lightning, because it's not natural to you, is going to cost a ton more. So just a base.
Spells have a certain price, and then if you're natural casting, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Or is it okay?
Yeah. Well, what it is like if you're a natural casting, it's going to be like a simple little ability, like equivalent to a first level ability, is just going to be 200 points. And then if you, and then let's say you're going to another casting that is not your natural, instead of being 200 points for that basic, what is equivalent to a first level ability, is going to be 600 instead of 200.
Okay. So you're paying a third of the price?
Yeah.
At least at that level.
Yeah. But that's pretty much how it is. So let's say you go up to a higher level to something that would, if it was your natural, is only going to cost 1,000. It's going to cost 3,000.
Okay, so you're paying a third.
Yeah.
Cool. That's cool. So then anyone could have at any point multiple elements to throw at you. Weak in the other elements that aren't their natural casting. But, well, does it augment that, or does it just cost them more?
Say it one more time for me.
Like, do they have, since they don't have a natural affinity for it, is it harder for them to succeed if you're casting stuff? Like, do they have a higher dice on this, or a lower dice, or whatever? Like,
no, it's the way it's looked at is as soon as you learn it, you're considered knowing it.
okay. It would be interesting that if you were a natural, besides it being less expensive, that if maybe like it was better, easier for you. Like, let's say like in certain instances when you're like, okay, they roll an 8 because you know it. Well, if you're a natural, a D8. Well, if you're a natural affinity, maybe you get to roll a D6 or something like that.
Right. Like
D10 or something. I don't know, whatever.
One way to look at it is that each casting is associated with a specific attribute, a specific stat. So like mineral casting has to do with force, how strong you are. So if
strength, it's force now.
Yeah, they've been relabeled, kind of giving a little bit more
separation.
I guess so, yeah, because it's force, which is like in D&D terms, force is your strength, finesse is your dexterity, physique is your constitution, mental is your intelligence, intuition is your wisdom, charm is your charisma, and then that seventh stat that is for Adventura, which is mana.
Okay.
So your like mineral casting is based off of your force, your strength, and if that's your natural casting, you can choose, to make that your highest stat. Well, let's say you want to go to water casting, which is based off of your finesse. Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Which is based off of your finesse. So if you have a really low finesse score, then that water casting is not going to be as effective because you're either going to gain a lower bonus to the rolls or even a negative to the rolls.
Okay. Gotcha. And then how are you going to work out ASIs? Ability score increases.
I'm not super sure because as of right now, I just finished it either yesterday or the day before, going through and setting up the new mechanics for the ability scores.
Mm-hmm.
And they and so you have a base set that are predetermined based off of your race. And then and those are affected by your occupation, your region, your upbringing. It's literally affected by everything else.
Okay.
And you're going to gain different boosts and stats based off of that.
I had a thought earlier.
Yeah.
It's kind of off topic, so you want me to wait? I could write it down.
No, I mean, if you just want to bring it up, we're pretty much just spitballing here, brainstorming, and just talking.
When you were talking about life force and caster force or magic force, whatever have you, what if, to tie religion in a little bit more, what if your life force expires before your magic force goes back to your religion? Like if you were in a battle and you died before you used the rest of your caster points, that somehow that essence would go to your religion.
That's actually that's actually pretty interesting because during the early stages of development for the concept, me and my wife were sitting down talking about it. She's the one that I originally and still do balance ideas off of, and we talk a lot about the different things. Well, we were talking about the religions, and specifically the religious leaders, and we were talking about the that event called the choosing, where you choose the religion that you want to follow, and that each religious leader essentially has a scepter, and the scepter is a very powerful artifact that is unique to each individual religion, and that when you follow that religion, you put a part of your casting, which is because it's a part of you, it's unique to you. You put it into that scepter, basically making you permanently a part of that religion, which would make a lot of sense for what you're saying. Is if your life force expires before that, and I like that term, casting force. Before that casting force expires, then that casting force would go back essentially to the scepter, which in turn would power the religious leader, and in turn empowering the religion itself.
So then I guess some people might want to die with as much of that still intact as possible, whereas other religions like war, it's like, well, you better give it your all, like.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I would definitely say that I don't even know which one would. I think it would probably be even more so for the individual, because it's all about because while your religion influences a huge amount of day-to-day life and belief, there's still a lot to interpret for individuals. Like the war religion, you are supposed to, if you're ever challenged, you fight to the death or until they concede defeat. That, though, is up to you what you consider a challenge. If you
what if the
view a
person
challenge,
doesn't know that? So you're just fighting them and you're fighting them to the death. But I guess they
Oh
don't.
yeah, that would be a error on the other person.
Yeah.
Because the war religion, they are known as the greatest warriors, and if you're because of that, at least the way I view it is like if I was playing somebody following the war religion, I'd have like a huge insignia on my chest, like indicating, oh no, if you mess with me, you're gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
So and everybody, because it's so prominent in the world, all these different religions, and you always come across different religions.
They should know
That
that about them.
everybody, yeah, everybody kind of knows at least something about the other religions, and that would probably be one of them. Like, hey, he follows Falsi, the war goddess. Don't step in front of him in line because he could view that as a challenge.
Mm-hmm. What was that last part?
He could, like, if you because like I was saying that like it's up to the individual to interpret everything. So if the wording of it is if you are challenged, you're going to fight to the death until they concede. Well, if you view somebody stepping in front of you in line as a challenge, that you view that as a challenge according to your religion, you now have to fight. For others, to the death. It's either I'm going to die, you're going to die, or you're going to admit defeat. Because another part of those teachings is another part of those teachings is you don't give up. So
never give up, never surrender.
Yeah, exactly. It is a very, very heavy combat and war religion.
I really wanted to choose that one. I'm glad I didn't, since 2 of the other 3 did. I'm glad I chose something different.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, because my wife even brought this up, that I think a lot of people are going to choose the war religion strictly because of the fact that it is all about combat. And in most RPG games, it's all about combat. Everybody wants to combat. They want a little bit of role play, but then they want combat.
Is that why you put it first?
In y'all's, it was actually one of my favorite just because of the philosophy of it. So I worked on it first in y'all's. Now in the edition that I have, it's all alphabetized. So the first one is actually Aaliyah, the goddess of the ocean.
Nice.
So that's also why that one looks a little bit different than the others, because I put most of my effort into that one and tried to base everything else off of that.
That's cool. Yeah, I was like, oh, I read the first one, War. I think I'm gonna just choose this one. I was like, let me pick something different. Maybe somebody else isn't doing. And they don't know who I follow yet, so hopefully we still battle, because we know more information about them than they know about us. So.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to. I'm gonna, like I said, I was gonna split y'all up so that we can focus in on. So I'm not doing back and forths. For y'all, better for me, better for everybody.
I was expecting just like 2v2 fight, and then like maybe we were gonna fight some other people, but then I guess there was like, now we're in 2 different locations. But I thought we were just gonna like get matched up and fight each other, and then
Yeah, originally it was. Originally, that's exactly what it was going to be. And then I was talking to somebody else about it, and I was talking to them, and then we kind of sat down and we're just talking about a bunch of different concepts. And then that kind of is where everything else came from. And I'm not used to doing playtests, so I'm used to creating an actual storyline and following that. And that's kind of what I got wrapped up in instead of the actual testing of everything.
I mean, it flowed. So we were all playing. We were playing it. That's what matters. I mean,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Well, yeah, the next one will actually be more straightforward, and it'll be, you know, the testing of the different abilities and attributes and the different uses of things. Because, like I said, I am going to send y'all the updated version as soon as I am done. I'm almost done with it. I gotta double check to try and make sure that that I didn't forget anything.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that might take me some time is creating the new character sheet, because it's gonna work. I don't want to say a whole lot different, because it's not a whole lot different, but the way it is written is different. And the way it's going to go onto a character sheet is different. So like, instead of like in D&D where you have the numerical value associated to each ability score, how it's you know, a 13 is a +1. Instead of doing things like that, it is literally just a 1, a 2, a -2, a 0.
Nice.
And things like that, where 0 is average. If you have a 0, it's not bad, it's just average.
Like having a 10 or 11.
Yeah. And then
it's still actually better than average, because if you look at like a commoner, I think they're all 8s.
Yeah, very true.
That's average. -1 all around the board.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I did some mock-ups. Let me see if I have it right here. Okay. Yeah, I did this mock-up of a couple of characters just to see how the new system would kind of flow. And so like the first character I made is going to be Raptora. And depending on, and it doesn't depend on the species or anything, because the base stats for the Raptora are the same. But it's a Raptora. His occupation is a fisherman. He's the ocean religion. He grew up on an island, but he was a hermit. And what I ended up getting was that his force is a 5, his finesse is a 4, his physique is a 2, his mental is a -5, is a 1. Yeah, his intuition is a 1. His charm is a -6. And then his mana is a 0. So it's just average mana. But like his mental and his charm stats are super below, which makes sense though for a hermit. So it just kind of happened to work out that way.
Reptile is he?
The way I was kind of picturing him is he's kind of like a crocodile or a Komodo dragon.
That's what I was thinking.
And then, you know, I kind of picture him like swimming through the waters, like you know, hunting for food and stuff, and then kind of going into a cave or something.
A Galapagos iguana.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
They swim and eat. They're like hold their breath forever. Do Komodos swim really?
I don't think so. They might. I'll have to. I watched a documentary on them specifically for the Raptora, but I also had my daughter up, and so I was halfway playing with her, halfway watching. So I'll definitely have to go
One
back.
thing good or two things crappy, right? Say I don't know. I feel you, especially when the little people McNuggets get involved. It's like.
Yeah, I know. So, but I mean, I kind of watched. I watched most of it, but yeah. So
I think they're more like arid or I don't know. Maybe they're tropic.
No, I think they're tropic. Pretty sure.
I thought they were more like, I don't know, deserty for some reason. I don't know why. No, they're more like Amazon, right? More tropic.
Yeah, I think they're more tropic.
And they're not nauseous. They're not poisonous at all. It's just that they can eat anything. So they eat things that are putrid, and so it makes their bite putrid.
Because that's actually interesting. Because like I've always grew up learning that, you know, it's just the bacteria in their saliva that causes infection,
Mm-hmm.
and that'll kill you. And then this one guy went and did a study on it, and he says that it's an actual type of venom. It's not just bacteria. There is bacteria, but there's actually a what kind
Something
of
they
tongue?
excrete.
Yeah, it's actually like under their tongue, and they have two little venom sacs, and it just coats their mouth in it. And when they bite you, it's that way. It's not like a snake that injects. But yeah, so
It's like it's a toxin then, right? Not a venom.
yeah, it's like
I don't know.
I don't want to call it a neurotoxin. But I think it's some kind of,
Because it doesn't affect the brain.
it literally paralyzes you. It paralyzes the muscle and makes it to where you can't escape and stuff. And that's when they come in for the attack, and they actually but yeah. So but
Cool.
But yeah,
So
so
does picking a different type of Raptora, does that have any effect on anything then?
it
Or is it
does.
strictly cosmetic? Okay.
It affects not only your look, which I would hope influences how you play the character, but it does give you a couple of different kinds of abilities. For example,
I didn't think you got rid of that.
Yeah, there's for example, there's the tortoise species of the Raptora, and they have a shell on their back. This makes it where they cannot be attacked from the back. You gain no kind of advantage from attacking them from behind. Yeah, so they literally always have protection, but that's because of this shell. They also have a decreased land speed. It's, I think, I would have to actually look.
Are slow, so
yeah. So, and then like they generally have a tail, and because of that, they can grapple you with the tail as a bonus action and attempt to constrict you. And every turn you have to make a check, a force check to try and escape. And if you fail it, then they're going to get tighter and they're going to start doing more and more damage to you.
That's the snakes or the turtles?
Yeah, that's the python.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you say that.
Oh yeah, sorry. That's the python Raptora.
Nice.
And then I actually incorporated for the Komodo dragon Raptora their venom, the saliva actually will cause poison damage to you. And then the crocodile Raptora gets a if it hits you with an unarmed strike, then it can make a bite attack and grapple you that way.
Nice.
So each one kind of has their own. Like there's also a king cobra species that can spit venom.
Nice.
So each one is very unique. They have the same basic, like something that all Raptora get is because of their reptilian hide, they're able to withstand more blows. So they get a +1 to AC automatically. Their defense rolls automatically get a +1.
Is that what we're going to call it now? Defense?
Yeah. It's going to be called defense now instead of AC. And the reason I made that change is because all the attack rolls are contested by a defense roll.
Makes sense. Except for it's just a defense number stat, right? It's not real. Are you rolling? Are they rolling to defend?
You're rolling to defend. And you actually get to choose what kind of stat you want to use to defend with.
Oh, I remember that because I was high in Constitution, and I was like, I'm just gonna take it. Like I'm a big rock dude. I'm just gonna take this.
Right. So, and that I'm trying to work out a wording for it, but flavor is actually a type of mechanic that can be used because, for example, like you're saying, the Constitution, the physique. If you're just going to stand there and let somebody pummel you and be able to walk away with no damage, that's a really cool scene to play out. But that means that you're still getting hit. You're just not taking any damage.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that can play into something is that, like with Jason's character, how he had the one girl touch him, and she had a prodigy called of poison, and her family deals with poison. And if she touches you skin to skin, that transmits the poison. So even if you are using force, which is used to actually like block, or if you're using physique, which is just literally standing there and letting them hit you, you're still going to get touched.
Right.
The only way to dodge that, so the only way, and like you might not understand that at first, but after you start taking that damage, you're going to realize, oh, I need to stay away from them touching me. So you're going to start using finesse or intuition to try and get out of the way. So flavor and like what you choose to do and the flavor that adds will actually influence the game. There's the example that I like using is there's a mineral casting ability called Earthen Vice, and it's a pretty high level ability. It's a pretty powerful one, and you create these 2 slabs of stone that come up on either side of the target and attempt to slam in on them. They have to make a force saving throw or a finesse saving throw. So they're either going to try and basically break the 2 pillars as they're going to try and collapse in on them, or they're going to dodge out of the way. So specifically with dodging them, let's say you pass that save. Okay, cool. You got out of the way before these 2 slabs of earth smushed you inside. But tell me, how did you get away? Did you jump forward, which puts you closer to your target if they're in front of you? Did you jump up and land on top of them after they had already collided with each other? So now you're on higher ground. Or did you jump backwards? So all of that actually matters in Adventura. And I think it should matter in games like in like D&D. It should matter. But a lot of people overlook it. They think, okay, cool, I made my saving throw. That's all that matters. And they don't either they don't explain it, or the GM doesn't give them the option, or they forget to explain how they dodged it.
And then making the defense where it's reactionary, where somebody gets to do something. I like that a lot too.
Yeah, I figured that's because it's kind of like, I think it makes it feel more like actual combat. You're always having to be focused with like, okay, I got to roll to dodge, and they're rolling to attack. The highest number wins. Well, if they're attacking and I'm just on my game right now, I'm really focused on them, I passed. I'm focused in and I'm able to dodge. Well, then, the next time they beat your roll, you were circling each other and you tripped on a rock, and that gave them that opening. So it kind of provides different situations for being able to more create the story than just the mechanics and just rolling to see who hit.
So I like defensive duelist. Be like, let me increase my armor class real quick.
No, definitely. There is though, like in Adventura, it is canon that a nat 1 is an automatic fail and a nat 20 is an automatic hit. And so
what about when you're rolling D8 and stuff?
The D8 actually has been taken out as of right now. where for like skills and being skilled in something, it's actually going to be, you're going to have all skills are going to have a number value called a skill value, and it's going to start off at 8. And then if you choose to add different things, actually, like all those same things that affect your ability scores also affect skills. So all those times where you're going to be able to pick a skill, you're going to add +3, +2, and +1 to each of those skills. So you're going to choose one skill to add +3, one skill to add +2, and one skill to add +1.
That's at the start, though, right?
Yeah, that's at the start.
That's the first start character skills, right?
Yeah.
But what about you get skills from your religion and stuff like that too, right? Or
yep,
and skills now.
Nope. It's actually during each of those things. So like during character creation, like your religion, you have 4 skills listed, and you're going to choose one of those 4 to add a +3 in, one of those to add +2, and one of those to add +1.
Okay.
And what that does is that takes the base stat of 8 in that skill. So let's say for some reason running is a skill. Starting out, you have a plus, or not a plus, you have an 8 in that skill. That means that you roll a d20 and you need to roll an 8 or below to pass that skill. So
that's it. That's with nothing augmenting it whatsoever.
Yeah.
So then if you get a +3 in that skill, now I need to roll an 11 or lower.
Yeah. And you can just keep hyping it up depending on what you're choosing.
Nice.
Running is also a force-based skill. Okay. So your
force added to it.
Let's say for some reason you have a -2 in force, then you're going to take away. So let's say you had that 11, now you have a 9.
Ouch. You're trying to overcome that deficit somehow when you're, maybe if you're leveling up. If you're skilled in running, you want to be better at it, then you're going to have to try to level it up somewhere along the way.
Right. And then one of the things I'm thinking is that same way you can buy using the ability points to buy abilities in your casting, you're also going to be able to use that to buy skills and buy points and skills. And then I'll probably have some kind of like chart set up where, you know, to raise it up to a 10, it's going to take this many ability points to get it to a 10. If you want to raise it up to 11, it's going to, yeah. And then I think
you have to do that. You could do that with the ASIs too. You could purchase it with points, but then make it where cumulatively each time you buy one, it gets more expensive.
Yeah, I would definitely say so.
You just don't get it. They only get so many anyways, or something.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is capping the max out at 10, and then the score at 10. So you can purchase them all day long.
But you can only get 10s in all your stats.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then like the least negative that you can get is a -10. Gotcha. Which could happen through multiple different things. Maybe story plot wise, you keep dropping in force because you're growing weaker and weaker for some reason. It will only go down to a -10.
Nice. That's still a lot.
Yeah, it is. But like I made 3 practice characters just to play around with, and like the max for I got out of all 3 of these is a 5, and then the least that I got. What were you saying?
I was gonna ask you, how are you generating your ability scores?
So here, what I'll do is I'll screen share it,
Okay.
so I can show you kind of what I'm talking about. Do. Let me get to it first.
I really hope you can hear the music from across the street.
Oh yeah, I totally can.
It's actually like at least a block over.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so can you see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like we've got Engel, and their starting stats are the -1 force, +2 finesse, and all that good stuff. And so that when you make your character and you choose your race, these stats will be what you start off with. And then
Gotcha.
let's see. Go. All right. So like. Not in this one. I know what tar is. Hold on. All right. Okay. So, like for the Earth religion, it's in the balance. So followers of Watar gain a +1 to physique and a -1 to force. So that's gonna adjust your stats. So like Engel already have a -1 to force. So they're actually gonna get a -2 now, or your character is gonna get a -2. And then they're gonna add +1 to whatever their existing physique score is. And then and that
I don't know how you're building your character.
Yeah, it all depends. And then like same thing for like a noble. If you're gonna be Engel noble, they're gonna get skills of a noble. They're gonna get a +1 to mental, a +1 to intuition, and a +1 to charm. But then they're going to take a -1 to force and a -1 to physique. So just because it's off the top of my head, they're going to have a minus. That Engel character is going to have a -3 force.
Or was
So
there
they're going to be
finesse? I know they were force, yeah.
There's and then I don't even know. I'd have to go back and check. But yeah, so that affects the stats as well. And then same thing for like if you were going to be a thief. If you're an Engel thief, you get +1 finesse, +1 intuition, +1 charm, and then -2 physique or -1 physique and -1 mental. And each thing changes your scores. Same thing like desert. Being in the desert, you get a +1 to physique and a -1 to finesse and mental. And then, yeah, lastly, upbringing, like maybe you grew up in the city, and bonuses to charm and mental, and
minus some more force.
Yeah. So yeah, minus some more force. So yeah. So I mean, that's
City
just kind of
light
how.
more now. You can hear city light, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Sounds like when I used to live in Savannah.
Yeah, it's like on the hour every hour here. But I'm moving next week, so that'll be nice. Start moving next week.
But yeah, so that's kind of how the stats are worked up now. Hopefully that'll be a little bit easier once you can actually like look at it to
So you're just
understand.
going off your base and then your choices. Then you're not rolling anything or point buying or anything like that at the start. It's just the
Yeah,
base
yeah,
and
not at the start.
minuses and pluses from your choices. Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that kind of
Is everyone an
I
equal
think
value
it's
build, at least at the start?
yeah, because I mean I think a lot it'll kind of it'll be. I'm trying to make people lean a little bit more to I want to play this type of character instead of I'm gonna mid max the heck out of this thing and gonna have a plus 50 to hit me, and you're not gonna ever hit me because I just chose the best things for it. I mean, obviously it's gonna happen, and it's still possible to do that. But by doing that, you're gonna be giving up some different things. Because I've also worked out for like the weapons you're going to have certain requirements to use certain weapons. So you're not just going to be able to like, okay, even though I chose the fighter because I get all these different weapons.
Doesn't mean you have the
But
ability score to use it.
right. I don't put a limit on it where you can't use that weapon. But if you don't have, like, say because some weapons, especially for martial classes, or not martial classes, but martial weapons, they require both force and finesse to use. So you're going to have to not only be strong enough to hold them, you're also going to have to be dexterous enough to be able to wield them properly.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that doesn't mean that you can't just pick one up and start using it, because just like in real life, like I have no idea how to wield a sword in reality. I don't know how. So it would like I know the basics. This is the pointy end. I don't grab that. I grab the handle and I swing this pointy end at you. Um, I everybody kind of knows that. So I wanted to give people the option to still use the weapons they wanted to use, but you're going to have disadvantage on all your attack rolls when you don't have the skill, or not skill, the appropriate score to use it.
Makes sense. I like that because, you could just be a dex fighter, but somehow use a two-handed weapon. And it's like, well, your strength is freaking 8. Why are you even using one to begin with? But on top of that, like, yeah, makes it
Yeah,
more fitting, more suitable.
right. And then it kind of if you're wanting to mid max and to use like the best weapon possible, and to I also want the best armor possible, which like the best armor so far is full plate, which gives you it gives you a +5 to your AC. But then I put an even bigger limiter on it, where that +5 only applies when you're using force or physique based defense. You're not trying
As
to
your
dodge.
defense. Gotcha.
Yeah, because that plate is really made for you not to have to try and dodge. Of course, you're
Right.
still moving around. You don't want to get hit, but it's in that case that you do get hit, it's going to try and deflect those blows.
Does it also affect your land speed or your finesse to wear plate?
It does. You actually To wear full plate, you cannot climb, and you do not have a swim speed. You can't swim. And then your land speed, I believe, is decreased by 10. Everybody will start off with
casting ability. Is
casting
that affected at all?
It is not. Though it's not. It's
Let's
not
assume
really.
your armor is designed for casting in mind.
Yeah. The way it's especially
Since everyone's a caster.
Yeah, it's the way though you kind of look at it though is each person is different, and like I probably won't go into the lore mechanics of how casting works, at least not this early in the game. I may write like a small little thing on it way later, but like each casting has there's these things called strings of fate.
Okay.
And this is all the magic that connects the world. This is what casting actually is. For mineral casting, the reason it's force based is because these strings are coming out of your body, and you're actually and are wrapping around the mineral that you're shaping, and your force, your actual strength is what is applying force to the mineral to shape it.
Gotcha.
So, but it's through these strings that is happening. Flame casting is that you're actually burning these strings of fate. It's the fuel for the fire, and that's how you're manipulating where it's going to go and what form it's going to take is by manipulating these strings.
Gotcha.
But normal people can't see these strings.
Right.
There are people called Weavers of Fate that are literally lore based. They're considered legend. There's not any of them around. But people know that there are strings of fate. They know that at one point in time there were individuals that could see them and could manipulate them to a higher degree. But so armor is kind of designed with the fact that these strings can come out of your body at any place.
Mm-hmm.
So one mineral caster might punch the ground to raise a pillar of earth, while another might stomp his foot.
Your phone's connected to the car. I don't know if we're gonna be able to.
Let me move myself. You can keep going, bro.
So another one might snap his fingers. It all depends on the individual and what somatic component they want to apply to their casting. Because each casting actually does require some somatic component to manipulate. It needs something to kick it off, essentially. So, so these ooh, that tripped me up for a quick. Hold on. Yeah. So these strings can come out of your body at any point in or at any place, but they're not tangible. It's almost like the spectral, so they can go through armor. That's not a problem. And even if it was, there are cracks in armor. There are places where the armor has to overlap to allow mobility, and they could just seep out through those points.
So is there like a limit of these strings, and you can only follow so many castings or something at a given time, or?
No, it's more. It's actually the way to look at it is that these strings are your like casting force personified, I guess. They are given a form. Even though it's not a physical form, it is form. And then how you manipulate these strings. Because like people know that these strings exist. It may not be like, everyday topics. You're not just going to start talking about strings, the strings of fate, unless it comes up for some unknown reason. But how you manipulate them is what kind of actually influences the casting. So, for example, going from like mineral, where you're wrapping the strings of fate around a mineral and then using your force to apply pressure and to shape it. If you're going to go from that to flame casting, you have to extend your strings to a fire source, and then your fire source will ignite that string, and then you basically trail your string wherever you want the fire to go, and then it's just kind of like leading it. And that's just same string. It's still a casting force. It's just how you're applying it.
I just now realized that casting would be, could potentially be making you have to split your stat priority. Didn't really dawn on it before.
Like what kind of casting you're going to go with based off of your stats?
Well, if you're dual casting and you're like this element or whatever, this kind of casting that's based off of your force, and then you're, this other kind of your other casting, like if you're fire and ice, they're probably not both the same stat. So you would be having to compete. Okay, well, I want to increase this stat or that stat. Unless you happen to build it where your stats are even or whatever, but
yeah, no, definitely.
But it might, or if you pick two castings from the same exact stat, that could be good. But if you didn't, it could be really spreading yourself out.
Right, like force, it only affects mineral casting. Finesse affects air and water. Physique affects sound and spirit. Then mental affects 3 types of casting that are not introduced yet, which are incantation, which now that I have the new system, because the only reason they weren't introduced was because I didn't know how to work the leveling system with them. But now that I'm kind of doing the point buy, it's going to be a lot simpler to do. So they will actually be introduced. Is incantation. So it's all verbal and it's like spells, the stereotypical spell. Rune, which are drawn runes that have power. And then summoning, which you can summon either organic or inorganic things. So you can summon beasts that you have a bond with, weapons. So maybe you have this huge sword, but you don't like carrying it around. So you just leave it at your house, and whenever you're ready, you can just essentially snap your fingers and it'll summon to you. Same thing with armor. You can have a bond with an armor, and you don't like walking around in this full plate armor. Well, then you snap your fingers, or you do whatever you do to summon it, and it summons it to you. And then whenever you're done with it, you do whatever, and you can send it back to where it came from.
That's the kind of like Eldritch Knights.
Yeah.
But more vast, more variety.
Yeah. I have to say that I stole the concept from Naruto. Huge fan of anime, which is a big basis for everything that I do with this. I watch a lot of animes for inspiration. And Naruto with their different summoning techniques really influenced me coming up with that. And I thought that would be really cool to incorporate into a system. So that's kind of how to look at it, is that especially with like the animal companion kind of thing, you can be out in the world and meet a Onijin tiger, a monstrous tiger. But obviously this tiger is not going to go with you or something. But if you form a bond with it, and through animal handling skill and stuff, you start to become friends with it. Once you get to a certain point, you create a bond. Well, now you can learn the summoning for it, and which is just basically knowing how to call to it, and you can use your casting to summon it, to help you with a situation or to fight or whatever. And then weapons and armor is basically you just have to spend X amount of time training with it to create that bond. And once that's happened, you now have a item that you can summon. Because there's some people that can, summon a 10-person tent. Why? Because they spent a lot of time as a kid in the jungle, and they camped a lot. So this is their family tent, and they just can summon it. Now everybody has a really cozy place to sleep. But going back to that's mental. And then you have intuition, which is shadow. No, hold on. Intuition is lightning and light. And then charm is shadow and flame. And so there are some, all of them have all the stats have at least one, which is force. And then the others have two. Like with, finesse being water and air. So there are some that, you could choose, hey, I have a really high finesse, and I'm going to choose for my prodigy dual caster. And so I'm going to choose air and water, which just means that you're going to have a good basis for each of those. But now it's, how are you going to apply it? Are you just choosing it? That way you have two abilities that are really good based off of the same stat. I mean, that's good mechanically, but for your character, does that make sense for your character? Which, I mean, nobody can stop. I can't stop you from choosing something just because, but you kind of have to play to it. I'm actually thinking about putting in quirks for little more role play based aspects for the different natural castings. Like one I had an idea for is that for flame casting, if you're a natural flame caster and you get mad, you'll actually like start to blow out steam or something, or like you'll get those wavy lines around you like you're heating up the air because you're angry.
Like when you eat that Taco Bell.
Yeah. Like when you eat that Taco Bell. But yeah, so there's a couple of different aspects I'm playing with for that. But yeah, and I know I'm really long-winded. I talk a lot, so.
No worries, bro. It's your show.
Yeah. I know. I just talk. I talk really fast, and I talk a lot, and then I'll get out of breath. So I'll be like, and then I'll start up again. So yeah, no. And then I'll just rant and rant and rant and rant. But let's see.
I'm just trying to get stuff to rant about.
I know you're good. Yeah, we'll probably talk about like one more thing, and then go ahead and call it on this. So let's see. We've talked a lot about like mechanics and stuff. So I know you were interested about like transportation. What would you, because like one mode of transportation that I had, the original concept, Adventura originally started as a book that I was writing, and to help translate it better, because I had really bad writer's block, to help figure out what to do, I translated it over into D&D terms and tried to play games that way to help give me ideas. And then that didn't fully work because, this system compared to D&D is vastly different, especially with the whole casting aspect. So I ended up, for people, just hey, I just might as well create my own system. And so, okay, yeah. So one of the original transportation concepts are these large fish, like giant fish, that casters have, at least either one or several casters have kind of tamed, and through a combination of different types of casting have essentially turned it into a like a cruise liner, where you can actually enter through like the mouth and go down into the stomach and stuff, but it looks like this grand like ballroom, and all has all these rooms in it, and it's a lot larger on the inside than it is on the outside. And it's and you can basically travel through the sea on one of these things, or in one of these things. And yeah, and it's a fish. It's like this. What I kind of picture is like this giant angelfish. I think that's what they're called. You know, with like the
Nice.
big antennae thing that comes out with the little globe that glows.
That's an anglerfish.
Anglerfish. That's what it is. Okay, yeah.
With the gnarly teeth, and they only way down deep in the ocean. They lure the fish with the bulb.
Yeah, anglerfish. So that's kind of what I'm like picturing, but large, like gigantic, and you can just like enter through the mouth and kind of go down into the stomach. But once you get, maybe even in the mouth, you know, once it opens its mouth, it looks like what you would kind of see like in New York or something, going into a hotel. You know, there's like a doorman and like this revolving door or something, and you could just walk in, and it's essentially like a hotel inside of this fish. And you travel long distances over the ocean through this. But this is like one of those luxury kind of things. This is not something that the average man could afford. Or like, you know, working class would have to work on a small ship or something and sail that way, or a cargo vessel to get through the ocean.
I'd have to know somebody who rode on one before I would get inside that thing's mouth.
Yeah, there's not a lot of survivors. No. So that was like one of the ideas I had for over the ocean and stuff. There's an ability for watercasters that's called Cloud Arc, and it's basically like Nimbus. I think that's what it was called from Dragon Ball Z that Goku rides on. Basically that. It's basically a cloud. But watercasters can gather the water molecules in the air and kind of solidify them to create this cloud. And the stronger you are, the larger the cloud is, and the more weight it can carry. And you can travel over in the air by those means, which I found kind of interesting as an interesting concept.
Yeah, that's from Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, I think it's called Nimbus. Yeah, it's the little cloud that that he rides on
too. Yeah.
But
you can do that as a watercaster. Make the cloud.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And that's almost like the pinnacle. Being able to create and maintain that, because it's not something
like you're or whatever.
Yeah, because I think it would be really cool, kind of like in Dragon Ball, what he does. You know, he rides it all over the place, and he at some points, you know, he's doing like combat on it. I kind of think that would be really cool to have a character just like fly around on it and like surfing through the sky and be like, "Hold on, guys, I'm coming."
Does that have a weight limit?
It does. The first when you first create it, just base is 200 pounds, casting points you pour into it, the larger it grows and the more weight it can hold.
Just when you create it, or just over time you can put casting points into it?
Over time you can put, so like you can put casting points into it to, if you're going from place to place to pick people up, you can throw some more casting in there and increase its size. So
temporarily or permanently?
Yeah, you could decrease it if you wanted to afterwards. I mean, I guess technically you could even decrease it while somebody's back there, like, oh, you didn't have money, you just snuck on. Okay, I'm going to shrink your area down.
No Uber for you.
Yeah.
No Nimbus Uber for you.
Nimbus Uber. That's great. But yeah, so that was like a water or water casting based transportation. The anglerfish kind of thing, I kind of see as like, the animal and the caster have a bond, which has allowed them to do that, which kind of plays into that summoning casting, or not casting, summoning, and then I think, off the top of my head, I think that the water casting is the only one that actually creates something that you can ride on, or you can do anything like that. Of course, like air casting has the ability hover, where you are essentially flying. You're creating a constant force of wind that is keeping you up in the air. And it's, think about how long that is. I think it's just a minute for combat, and I think out of combat that changes, just as like a flavor aspect, because you're more focused in combat on other things, so you're not paying full attention to flying.
Your concentration totally changes.
Right. So when you're out of combat and you're just flying around, it's like, like 30 minutes or something on a few caster points to be able to fly. So it's not that big of a deal out of combat. In combat, it's a little bit. A minute is still a lot in combat, though. Most encounters don't even last a minute, unless it's wave after wave, or it's a really tough opponent. And then, of course, you have races that can swim and breathe water, like the Aquarian race, which are essentially merfolk. They live underwater. They are born underwater. They can still breathe air.
Are they hatched?
I actually don't know. That would be really interesting. That actually would be pretty cool.
Raptora would be, right?
Yes, Raptora would be hatched. They would not be live birth.
What if like the Aquarians like something different, like, or maybe something like a seahorse? Are they seahorse like, or like they have that pouch and like could carry, or
that would be kind of interesting.
What?
No, they're very humanoid. The big,
like Namor, or
like who?
Go ahead.
What were you saying? Who? Namor?
Namor from Marvel, or I guess like Aquaman.
Oh, yeah, no, they're so.
Or are
like
they just like humanoid in a different color?
Yeah, like that's they're normally
a.
Oh no, sorry, man. No, they're like a shade of green or blue. It kind of varies from individual to individual. Some are darker, some are lighter. And they generally have black hair, very sleek black hair. They have larger eyes. And they have webbed fingers and toes, and they have the fisherman's hook, which is this bone protrusion out of one of their wrists, which they can use like a harpoon or like a sword, depending on the shape of it, because each person's is different. Other than that, though, they look, and they have gills on the side of their neck. Other than that, they look human, which all of that together, they don't look human at all. But those are the only changes to their appearance.
Are they can breathe water and air, you said?
Yeah, they are amphibious.
That's cool.
Yeah, the one of the big drawbacks with them, though, is that they do have to stay moisturized and hydrated. It's like once a day they have to fully submerge in water.
So it pays to be a water
rehydrate the skin. Yeah, with them it definitely does.
Or at least have a friend that
or at least know some water casting. Because like you don't have to be the natural water caster, but to know some would definitely help to be able to coat your body. And you generally don't find them in very hot places like the desert, just because water is super scarce and they will get dehydrated and their skin will dry out very quickly in the hot sun. So, but no, I think I do think that it'd be interesting to figure out something for how they are born, because eggs is always a possibility. I think that would I think that would be interesting to happen upon a nest of eggs underneath the water.
I think that they're born, eggs underwater, right?
Yeah,
they're like that, like translucent eggs.
Yeah,
though, do they like tadpoles and pollywogs and then become a human eventually?
No, they're born, or they're when they I don't even know how to word it at this point, but when they are born, they just look like a child version of their adult selves, but they mature extremely quickly. They reach like their version of adulthood in almost no time. Age 3 years old, they are fully mature. They can completely take care of themselves. They are fully functionable. They can leave. But even as like a child, they still have all the basic instincts, and they learn very quickly. And the way I kind of look at it is that they live in the ocean, the open ocean. So there's a lot of predators. There's a lot of hazards. They have to learn. They're very instinctual beings. They have to learn how to survive in this kind of habitat. Because not only are there, there's dangers and threats on land, but there's also the different risks of pollution in the water, which causes this huge issue with the Duncan, the humans of the world. The Aquarians don't like the Duncan because they pollute the waters. They just throw trash and they throw waste and dead bodies and all kinds of different things into the water, and that's the Aquarian's home. So there's a lot of different hazards, not only natural but also these other things that are happening. And so they mature very quickly in terms of, or comparatively to other races. I think the only other race that would mature as quickly are the Raptora, because they're very bestial and they have to very quickly. All right. So is there anything else that you, off the top of your head, that you wanted to bring up or talk about?
I was just going along with world building and stuff with you.
Yeah.
I think more will come up after I see your next version. I'll remake
Yeah,
the
I plan.
character and go ahead.
Yeah, what I'll probably do is I'll probably try and get either both groups together, or I'll make a video specifically on me going through and making a character, and do it real slow and explain everything so that maybe y'all can watch and build y'all's characters along. Or I'll try and get each of the groups together individually, or even individuals, and sit down and make characters with y'all. Or any kind of questions or anything.
Yeah, there was only those little, like, if I'm nitpicking, if I have to give you a critique, something to correct. Those are the only speed bump, the little snag that I saw in the process when I went through it. Dan, you've already addressed it, so next one, and like your modifications that are going to separate it from its original, its adolescent stages. I like where it's going.
Okay.
It's separating itself from something and making itself its own thing. I think that's awesome.
Sure. I appreciate it. Once you are able to take a look at the new draft, I would definitely appreciate any kind of feedback or any any advice you would have, or anything that you would maybe like to see, or anything that you think I could change. Anything, any kind of critiques are more than welcome. I love talking about the system, and I really want to make it enjoyable for people to play. So I like feedback.
Well, something I learned in the Army is if you ever have a con, you always have to have a pro. So anytime I ever have anything that I'm going to say that's, maybe constructive, then I'm going to find something that's positive along with it. So, but I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to seeing its next iteration. And then, what was I going to say? But yeah, there's nothing that I like I said, I only had to nitpick about that. I was only to give you something constructive. But, I don't know. I'll see. I want to see if there's with the prosthetic, if maybe you could level up or skill up with that particularly, or something like that. So
okay,
possibilities. How someone would maybe be able to take a feat in 5e to get better at something. Maybe there's a way I can spend those points that I can get maybe towards the prosthetic.
Upgrading or something, or more like attachments.
Maybe getting proficient with it or something. I mean, the way I built my character in the first iteration, it already kind of got that, because I just compensated for his deductions that he got with his prosthetics. I just compensated that in other areas so that it was the prosthetic didn't really drag him down.
Right.
So even though it was a handicap, I just made up for it in other areas. But it would be cool to be well, I've had this for a while or whatever, so it doesn't drag me down, so you don't have as much of a speed reduction with it or something like that.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. The longer you've lived with it, the more you've used it, the less drawbacks it has, and probably the more advantages you figured out how to use it to a greater degree. And that makes a lot of sense. Somebody that's new with one of these metallic prosthetics aren't going to understand, the full capabilities of them. They're going to be dragged down by them in multiple ways. And compared to somebody, that has had it for 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm. And then since it's a prosthetic, you should have the ability to add things to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe plates of armor or blades or something like that, because you can't necessarily do that on your body.
Right.
But you could do that now that it's an augmented part.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that. I'll have to play around with that and come up with a couple of different variations on things that you could add or maybe even do with, and maybe some way to determine at what point you would not be limited by it as much. But yeah, so I'll definitely take note of
or
that.
even like augmenting it lighter or stronger and stuff like that. I don't know, just possibilities.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely think that actually is one of, because that's a quirk that's an option, and so I think I'm going through tomorrow. I'll probably be done, depending on how much time I spend on it. I'll probably be done revising all the other little bits and pieces, and I think the next thing I'll be stopping on are the prodigies and the quirks, and I'll have to adjust those to the new mechanics. And while I'm doing that, I'll kind of address the metallic quirk to see what I can do with that.
That's cool. It reminds me of Full Metal.
Yeah, during the I'm not even going to call it like a beta or anything, like the Omega version of the system, where I played, came up with just the concept and only had 3 castings up to 5th level done. I played with my home group, and metallic was one of like 3 or 4 quirks that you could choose, and one of my players chose mineral casting and chose the metallic quirk and had a prosthetic arm, and that's what he brought up, was like, I'm going straight Ed from Full Metal. And I'm just gonna start like changing my my fist and my arm into, like a dagger and a sword, and that's my version of casting. I was like, well, that's pretty unique. That's cool. I like that. No, definitely. I'll play with that though. I'll take it under consideration and figure out something to do with it.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I mean, not everybody's necessarily exploring that option, so there might be other things that are more principal, but just something that I thought was a idea.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm sure throughout, because I'll probably do God knows how many more playtests after we're done with the little set that we're doing. I'm planning on trying to get multiple groups of different people together and get a whole collage of different opinions on the system itself, so that we can so that I can figure out where everybody sees some issues and some things that could be changed.
All right, sounds good.
But yeah, so we're gonna I'll go ahead and call it for tonight.
All right.
We'll try and get together maybe next time. Jason can join us. And so is there anything that you want to say before I do my little outro?
Just let me know when you want to play it again, and when it's ready to view, I'll be there to convert the character or make a new one or whatever have you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I'll definitely let you know. It'll probably be like another week or so. Probably not so much 2 weeks, but at least a week before I send you and the other guys the modified 0.2 version.
No rush. But
yeah, so thank y'all for sticking with us and kind of listening to me ramble on and on and on. This was just a little little discussion, just to kind of have some fun and explore the new system and the world a little bit more. And if for some reason anybody's interested in the Adventura system, you can just hit me up and leave a comment or whatever to let me know what you think. If you're interested in playing, helping me play test, or maybe if you're seeing this after it's already done, you're interested in getting a copy or something, just like let me know, and we'll make it happen. So till next time, guys, I'm Jim over here at RPG Enlightenment, and can't wait to the next video. Hopefully y'all stop in and join us for that. So may you always seek enlightenment.